It is written in the law of succession that the king of Sweden, or whoever is in line for succession for the throne, must be a member of the Church of Sweden, because Sweden still sees the royal family as one of their moral leaders. Hi, this is Anita from the Dusty Roads podcast. Today we're going to go to Europe and we're going to talk a little bit about Sweden. And in particular, we're going to talk about what is the official religion of Sweden. This for me is really interesting because if any of you have been listening to me or might know anything about me personally, is that my mother is actually from Stockholm, Sweden. So I am half Swedish, and I have lived there myself during high school. I lived there for a little while. So I actually have quite a few Swedish friends or people I've known for quite some time. You know, it's interesting to see, to ask the question, like, what is the official religion of Sweden? And, what is essentially what's the guide to Sweden? Sweden used to have a state religion, which was called the Church of Sweden. Since the year 2000, the Church of Sweden is no longer officially the Church of Sweden. In other words, it's no longer officially the state church. And this is interesting to note because this is the only Nordic country without a state church, as Norway, Denmark, Iceland, and Finland all have retained their state churches, but Sweden has not. On an interesting side note of this, Sweden does have royalty, and even though it no longer has a state church, the King of Sweden needs to still be a member of the Church of Sweden or the Lutheran Church. It is written in the law of succession that the king of Sweden, or whoever is in line for succession for the throne, must be a member of the Church of Sweden, because Sweden still sees the royal family as one of their moral leaders. But today many Swedes will say that they are Lutheran, but church attendance in Sweden has continued to decline. Only 6% of the Swedish population are members of the Church of Sweden. A record number of Swedes have left the church over the last couple of decades, and the further decline is predicted. Yet before 2000, Sweden had a state church. And the Church of Sweden was officially the Church of Sweden for over 500 years. And they actually were very much involved together with the Swedish government. But until 2000, the Ministry of Culture appointed all the archbishops, all bishops, their assistants, and the 13 Lutheran Foundation directors. But now with these changes, the church and not the Ministry of Culture will make these appointments. The Swedish government long collected a church tax to finance the clergy and to maintain and protect the church property. Sweden has more than 3,700 old churches, and these are today considered to be historical sites which the government has vowed to continue to protect. What's interesting in all of this is, despite this, that there's still a lot of Swedish traditions and holidays which may take place in the church. And one of them, of course, would be the Swedish holiday on December 13th, which is Santa Lucia, where many of the Santa Lucia ceremonies still take place within a Church of Sweden, or a church in Sweden itself. Sweden does have a very good freedom of religion law. So if you are not a member of the Church of Sweden, you're going to go live in Sweden, or you're going to be in Sweden, you don't need to worry about your religion law at all, because Sweden has a religion law which maintains that everyone has the right for the freedoms to worship as they choose. So Sweden has some very good laws in place, and the Swedes are generally very open-minded regarding religion. They feel like anyone can be any type of religion they choose to be, but you should not force your religion upon them. A Pew Research poll recently did a poll about religion and how important religion was to different religions. And it's interesting to note that just 9% of the Swedish population feel religion was necessary to have a belief in God. And this is very low compared to many other countries. And other countries that were very low was the Czech Republic and France. But the Czech Republic was 14% and France was 15%. Sweden also has some of the lowest numbers when asked about religious importance. In Sweden, only 22% of adults think that religion is important. Other countries that also had low ratings was the Czech Republic at 23, France at 33, Netherlands and Hungary at 39. So Sweden is one of the lowest countries in the world where people believe that a belief in God and religion is considered necessary. So you compare this to other places around the world. For example, you can compare this to places such as Nigeria, which is extremely high. You can compare this to places such as Indonesia or the Philippines, which is very high too, where it's over 90% of the people believe that religion is important. So you can see that when you think of this, that Sweden really has quite a low, most Swedes do not feel that religion is very important, that they do not see religion as being an important part of their daily life. And that's why many Swedes aren't bothered that the fact that the Church of Sweden is no longer considered to be the main church within Sweden, or is not considered to be the state church of Sweden. I find this Pew Research poll to be quite fascinating because not only is it divided between countries, but also it's between incomes. Like, for example, in the United States, those in a lower income, they feel that it's important to have a belief in God. 56% do. Higher income, only 32% do. You compare that to some other countries like Canada, where lower income's 33% and higher income's 20%. So you can see that, even among the incomes, according to this research that they've done, like the lower income that people have, the more importance they see religion. The higher the income, the less they see it. Also, too, with education, the less education, 52% say that it's important. And of those that have a lot of education, 34% say that it's important. So even among education itself, there's also this divide that is going on. That generally speaking, countries that are more developed see it being less important to have a belief in religion or had to have a belief in God. But those countries that are least developed believe that there is. This is really quite an interesting poll. If you go to the blog that I've written, you can be able to get a link to this recent research poll that the Pew did about religion. And it's really interesting to see all these different countries and how basically money, education, and other things could affect their belief in God. So Sweden really in a lot of ways is no different than a lot of these other places where there could be a decline in the worship, in the churches and in other places. And many of them do not feel that they need religion in order to be moral. So there is what they call a global divide upon God between different countries according to how much money the country has or how developed the country is or other aspects of it. I really find that this is quite a fascinating thing, that it's really a very interesting aspect of maybe life and religion that we don't really think about today. So when you ask the question, what about religion in Sweden? You could say that Sweden really is not much different than many other parts of Europe where maybe religion is no longer as important as it once was to the country. This is Anita from the Dusty Roads podcast, where we talk about all things about living life as a global citizen. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast and that you will join with us and learn more about how you can live your life as a global citizen. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for our team who helps put this together and makes this possible.